Man, what? That was my first question when a good friend of mine told me that this wild idea I'd been thinking about, that consciousness might be everywhere, in everything, had already been theorized, and hundreds of years ago. My second thought, I'm glad I'm not the first idiot to think about this. And my third, wait, damn it would have been cool to come up with something new. Welcome to Quantum Awareness. I'm QP, and today we're diving into one of the most mind-bending ideas in philosophy, one that might just explain, well, everything. So here's the big question we're tackling today. Where does consciousness come from? Is it just in your head? My head? Or is it everywhere? Now, before you think I've completely gone off the rails, stick with me, because what I'm about to share isn't just some new age nonsense or some quantum woo. This is serious philosophy that's been around since before Aristotle. And the crazy part, modern physics and Buddhism might both be saying it's true. Okay, so panpsychism. Let me break that word down for you. Pan means all or everything. Psychism comes from psyche, mind or consciousness. So panpsychism literally means consciousness is in all things. Everything, not just you, me, and your dog. We're walking stones, elementary particles, your cup of coffee, everything. Now, I know what you're thinking. Come on, a rock isn't conscious. That's ridiculous. And yeah, even for me, someone who loves this stuff, it sounds a little far-fetched until you can delve into it a little bit more. So let's do that. The earliest known references for panpsychism come from ancient religions. Shintoism, Taoism, paganism, and shamanism. And these weren't just primitive people who didn't know any better. They were deeply thoughtful cultures observing reality. Even Aristotle said, everything is full of gods. Now, just let that sink in for a second. Plato argued that all things participate in being, and that being must have a psychic aspect, mind and soul. He wrote, "The world is indeed a living being endowed with a soul and intelligence, a single visible living entity containing all other living entities, which by their nature are all related." Wow, that's a pretty big idea and not so easy to wrap your mind around, right? And here's the thing. The idea of panpsychism takes us from one of comfort, of our strongly held idea of being an individual, separate, special, and unique, and throws it completely out the window. It challenges the whole ego thing. Even the religious idea of a soul or Atman, this permanent individual you, doesn't quite work anymore. Instead, panpsychism says not only are all beings one, but all things are united in a blissful unity. Sort of a cosmic beingness. Now, for some people, that's incredibly comforting. We're never alone. We're connected to everything. We're co-emergent with the universe. But for others, it's terrifying. Because if you're deeply attached to your individuality, your ego, this idea that threatens everything you think you are. Now, panpsychism has some competition. It's not the only theory about where consciousness comes from. The other big one is called emergence theory. This says consciousness emerged from some unknown evolutionary chemical process. Like at some point in history, matter became complex enough and boom, consciousness appeared out of nowhere. Philosopher Galen Strawinson puts it perfectly. He says either you're a panpsychist or you're an emergentist. Either mind was present in things from the very beginning or it appeared at some point in evolution. And here's the kicker. There's no proof of consciousness emerging from any process. None that we've ever seen happen, and we can't make this happen in a lab. To be fair, there's also no proof of panpsychism either. So why do I lean towards panpsychism? Because it's simply more elegant. It takes mind and consciousness a few steps further than just saying it magically appeared one day through chemicals. Okay, now, here's where this gets really interesting. Let's look at subatomic particles. Think about it. There's no difference between the protons, neutrons, and electrons, quirks, and quarks in my body and the protons, neutrons, electrons, quirks, and quarks in the desk in front of me. They're the same particles. The only difference, I'm conscious and the desk is not. Or is it? Maybe it is conscious, just at a dramatically reduced level, or in some composition where I can't perceive the consciousness properly. David Bohm, a brilliant theoretical scientist and philosopher, said, "That which we experience as mind will, in a natural way, ultimately reach the level of the wave function and the dance of the particles. There is no unbridgeable gap or barrier between any of these levels. In some sense, a rudimentary consciousness is present even at the level of particle physics." Phew, that's a statement and a half. Just look at the observer effect in the double slit experiment. Particles literally behave differently when we observe them or not. The electrons decide if they're a wave or a particle based on whether we're watching. So here we can say that there's no real barrier between me and the desk, not at the quantum level. To this day, we don't understand where or how consciousness arises. We don't even know what role the brain plays, if it plays a role at all. Maybe the brain isn't creating consciousness. Maybe it's just a receiver, sort of like a radio receiving information on several channels we call our senses. Seeing, hearing, touching, tasting. Panpsychism skips this whole problem completely. Its simplicity is profound. I'm reminded of what Sherlock Holmes said, "When you've eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth." And so it is with panpsychism. Can science accept this? And if not, how do we prove something we haven't been able to prove, even though the truth might already be in front of us? How much closer can consciousness be? It's always right in front of us. We are, so to speak, completely immersed in our conscious experience. Now, here's where my Buddhist ears really perk up. Buddhism teaches that all beings have mind, what we call Buddha nature, this ability to realize one's full potential. Many Buddhist teachers, when asked if plants have mind, they'll say no. They'll say only if something moves like an ant does it have mind. But we know plants move towards water and sunlight. Some studies even show that trees and forests share nutrients and water with sick or old trees. That's not just consciousness. That's intelligence and compassion. This narrow view isn't as encompassing as panpsychism. But here's the thing. Buddhism also requires us to break down all borders and boundaries, not just between us and other beings, but between all concepts and ideas. So, why not between all phenomena as well? The ultimate understanding of mind in Buddhism: nothing has any true or independent existence in and of itself. All things have the same qualities, conscious or otherwise. And let me quote David Bohm once again. "The notion of a separate organism is clearly an abstraction, as is also its boundary. Underlying this is unbroken wholeness, even though our civilization has developed in such a way as to so strongly emphasize the separation into parts." This oneness without separation or boundary is exactly what Buddhists mean when we talk about subject, object, and action coming together as one. This is the state of Mahamudra, complete and full awareness or consciousness. Once we reduce everything ontologically, either in meditation, philosophically, or scientifically, all that's left is consciousness. Mind doesn't mind, and nothing else seems to matter. Even matter doesn't matter. Can you imagine that? In this simple state of just being, connected with everything, aware of all that there is, a state of great joy and bliss arises. Total freedom of mind. No more running from things, no more reaching for things, just complete happiness and wisdom, resting in the suchness of everything. And here's the beautiful part. This is where we can really be effective in this confused and angry world. This is where we can really be the change that we wish to see. So, is consciousness everywhere and in all things? Yeah, I think so. Its simple beauty is both profound and inspiring, especially to the Buddhist ear. Modern science seems to agree more and more with this conclusion, and I keep asking, when will modern society see the light as well? Maybe panpsychism is even the solution to what we call the hard problem of consciousness, the question of how and why sentient beings have any experiences at all. Here's what I know. This idea that consciousness is fundamental, that it's everywhere, that we're all connected at the deepest possible levels, it changes everything. It changes how we treat others, how we treat the environment, how we see ourselves. Because if we're all part of one conscious universe, if even the particles that make up my body and your body and that tree outside are all sharing in this universal awareness, then hurting you is no longer an option because I'm hurting myself. Damaging the world is damaging my own being. It's not just philosophy. It's not just poetry. It might actually be the deepest truth about reality. So, what do you think? Is consciousness everywhere? Are we all part of one universal mind? I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment, send a message, and let's keep this conversation going. Next episode, we're taking this foundation and building on it with one of the strangest ideas in quantum physics, superposition. Trust me, if you thought this episode was mind-bending, just wait and see. Until then, stay curious and remember, you might be way more connected to everything than you ever imagined. And don't forget to visit quantumawareness.net for full transcripts, show notes, and related articles about exploring where quantum physics, Buddhism, and neuroscience converge. Thanks for listening. I'm QP, and I'll catch you next time.